Welcome to the Just Live podcast. I'm your host, Olivia Stevens, and I'm inviting you in on my personal journey of learning and discovering how to live a life with more connection, joy, and purpose. I'll be sitting down with people from all walks of life to dive into topics including trauma, mental health, mindfulness, the nuances of love and relationships, and much more. I hope these conversations empower you to expand on what serves you, release what doesn't, and just live. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to briefly talk about one of our sponsors, Jimmy's Famous Meals. So Jimmy's Famous Meals is a meal delivery service that was crafted and created by Jimmy's Famous Seafood Restaurant, which is located here in Baltimore. So they are chef-prepared meals that are ready to heat and eat in minutes. They have over 150 menu options, and you can even customize your meals based on dietary restrictions, gluten-free, dairy-free, all that stuff. I am so busy with work and I don't really have time to cook. I'm always on the go, and it's really nice to have meals that I can just heat up that taste amazing. So if you're interested in trying some home delivery meals that taste great and are very affordable, go to jimmysfamousmeals.com and use promo code Olivia25 for 25% off your first order. Before I jump into the episode, I want to just remind everybody that I am not a mental health professional or a practitioner. I'm not a psychiatrist, a psychologist. I'm not a doctor. I have no formal education in the health and wellness space. This episode and this podcast do not take the place of therapy or a doctor's appointment. So please seek the help of a professional. I am simply sharing my own personal experience and what I've gone through. So keep that in mind when you're listening. It's been a minute. I feel like I've said that the past couple episodes. I've definitely been feeling like I hit a little bit of a block mentally. That I think that could be contributed to a number of factors as far as like the podcast goes. But I'm here and I'm going to try and put something out. And I think sometimes I don't really know exactly what it is I want to talk about. You know, what I think would be of value to people. I don't want to feel like I just jump on here and start rambling about things that don't resonate with people. And I think I put a lot of pressure on myself, which is really silly because I know that, you know, this is just something I'm doing for fun and it's not the end all be all. And if it resonates with some people, that's incredible. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. Initially, the podcast was born in the hopes that I would be doing it with a friend of mine at the time. And it was going to be kind of something we were doing together, but then it didn't work out that way. But I still really wanted to do it. And I know before I launched the podcast over a year ago, I went through a really bad breakup and I moved back home with my parents. And I remember specifically one night, it was like a Saturday night. And for context, I moved back home when I was like 31 years old, going on 32. And I was home on a Saturday night, laying in the guest bed at my parents' house. And I was basically like crying myself to sleep because I just felt so alone and sad. And I just was like, I can't possibly be the only human that feels this way or that's experiencing this. Like, why does it feel like everybody I know and everyone around me and everyone on social media is out living their lives and having fun and enjoying the season that they're in, and I'm just here stuck in this place experiencing these circumstances that are just making me feel so incredibly lost and lonely and miserable. And I basically continued on with the idea of the podcast in hopes that sharing whatever it is I was experiencing, good, bad, ugly, that other people could relate and would feel less alone. I think sometimes I forget that the things I am experiencing in my life can and will resonate with people. And I'm so concerned about what to say or what to talk about or what it's going to look like or how it's going to land instead of just like truly speaking from the heart and being authentic and just sharing exactly what I'm going through. That I get like caught up in my head about all of those things. So lately, if I'm being perfectly honest, I have been feeling really down. And I'll kind of provide a little context. For most of my life, can say that I have kind of struggled with some type of depression or feelings of depression and sadness and that sort of thing. And, it kind of comes in waves. And of course, life is always ever changing, and what you're going through, the season that you're in, might not feel so heavy and so hard because there's all these other things going on that kind of, I don't want to say distract you, but in a sense, kind of distract you from those feelings that, for me, always seem to kind of be there, like dormant or latent in the back of my mind or my heart or my body or wherever it is that it exists. And for a long time, I felt pretty helpless because there was kind of this long-standing narrative or theory that depression is this chemical imbalance in your brain and or it's genetic. And I've had a family history of people experiencing depression. And so I kind of grew up thinking that this was something that I would always be struggling with and something that was just kind of a part of me, a part of who I am, and something that really couldn't be fixed. And if I think back, how you're introduced to mental illness or depression, a lot of it's just like what you see on TV. There's these commercials, people look really sad, and then they're prescribed a pill. And that's really the only kind of treatment that I was exposed to for a really long time. In my 20s, I did explore antidepressants. I tried various ones. Nothing ever really seemed to work for me. It felt like I was just kind of numb. I felt really flat. It was like I didn't have any super high highs or low lows. It was just kind of this like lull. And I didn't really like the way that it made me feel. And I always also just felt in the back of my mind and in my heart that there's got to be something I can do to help this, to heal this, to work through this. I don't want to have to rely on a medication my entire life. That was just a personal belief and choice and hope for me. I'm not going to speak any more to that because I'm not a doctor or a psychiatrist, but that was just my personal experience, and my hope was that I could find alternatives and other ways to at least like cope with the feelings that I was feeling on a semi-regular basis. So the podcast also kind of came to fruition because I have spent a lot of my, free time diving into mental health, and I've always been super curious about my mental health and how to navigate it and how to improve it. And so I was like, well, if I'm going to be doing all this learning and reading, I should share what I'm finding and discovering with other people because it might help somebody else out there that's experiencing something similar. And if it leads them to something else, to something else, to something else, and that helps them navigate their circumstances a little bit better and gives them a little bit more peace, then that is incredible. So I've tried like traditional therapy. I have tried antidepressants. Both of those didn't really seem to move the needle. I mean, the antidepressants didn't move the needle at all. I think talk therapy has its place and it's helped in many ways, but there was also a big part of me that felt like I was still on a merry-go-round. I was gaining awareness of patterns and feelings and things that are happening in my life but there really wasn't a whole lot of change, and I would continue to feel the same exact way. And that just made me like incredibly frustrated at times, because you're putting in this work. Therapy isn't cheap. You're gaining all this insight, but it's not doing anything to change how you're feeling. For a long time, the prevailing theory was that depression was this chemical imbalance in the brain, primarily serotonin, a serotonin imbalance. But I mean, recent research out there has indicated that depression is much more nuanced than what we've believed, that depression is a very complex interplay between genetics, your biology, your environment, trauma, and a lot of other psychological factors. So while that can be a relief for some, it could also be equally as frustrating for me, saying, oh, okay, so it's not a chemical imbalance. There's all these other factors that could be at play here. Where do you begin? You know, my curiosity, I always say, is like a double-edged sword, because I've spent so much time learning and researching and trying to understand what I'm experiencing, but there's so much information, and there are many aspects to this that could be contributing to it. So it can be hard to heal and move forward through something that you can't really pinpoint. You can't draw a direct correlation between this and that, or say this is causing that. As of recently, in a lot of what I've been learning in the mental health space, reading various books, listening to different podcasts, I'm learning more and more about how important and how much of a role our subconscious mind is playing in our mental health. So the subconscious mind is essentially a mental framework that operates beneath our conscious mind. It stores our beliefs, our thoughts, life experiences, memories, and it significantly impacts and influences our thoughts, our behaviors, and our emotions. So a lot of our automatic behaviors and responses are stored and ingrained within our subconscious, and what is formed in our subconscious basically comes from past experience. It comes from conditioning. The good news is that there's a lot of science and research in regards to neuroplasticity, which refers to the brain's ability to reorganize and to form new neural connections. So if we have something ingrained in our brain, it is possible to change it. So we have the ability to rewire these neural pathways and create new, healthier patterns of thinking and behaving. So some of the recent work that I've come across are from people like Peter Crone, Paul Conti, Gabor Mate. All of these thinkers, these practitioners, they believe that our thoughts and our beliefs shape our reality and our experience. And they believe that depression stems from suppressed emotions and conditioned patterns and beliefs that are stored in our subconscious. They believe that societal conditioning, childhood experiences, and trauma play a major role in how these beliefs are formed. These beliefs that we form about ourselves can contribute to things like depression or anxiety. So these practitioners, thought leaders in the wellness, mental health space advocate for various therapeutic techniques and, holistic modalities in order to kind of process any unresolved trauma and to work on rewiring those neural pathways that have these subconscious beliefs ingrained in them. Anyone that doesn't know what a limiting belief is, some common self-limiting beliefs are like, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'll never be successful, I have no value, I can't trust anyone. The world is not safe. I need other people's approval or validation. I don't have enough blank time, money, skills, things like that. So obviously these kind of beliefs can really affect the way you move and show up in the world. I mean, bringing it back to me and what I've been experiencing lately. And for me, depression shows up in a very complex way. It's not just, oh, I'm sad, like I can't get out of bed. It's like equal parts debilitating and infuriating. It's irritability. It's hopelessness and feeling like I will never be anything, accomplish anything, do anything important. Nothing I do or say matters. It shows up as dying for authentic connection with people, but not wanting to connect at all. It shows up as hyper independence and feeling like I have to distance myself from people. It shows up as not reaching out to people. It feels numb. It feels heavy. It feels like it's never going to end. And so now that I'm learning more and more about the subconscious, and that these limiting beliefs that could be stored there could be contributing to these feelings, it's my job now to really dive deeper and understand what are the limiting beliefs that I have and how did they get there and how can I reprogram them. So I think what's important, obviously the first step in working through this and trying to overcome it, or at least come to a place where it feels a lot more manageable, is having a self-awareness of, this is what I'm feeling. How can I become more aware of my thoughts and my beliefs? And how can I create space between myself and those thoughts so that way I can look at them and understand them, one, with greater compassion for myself, and then two, with the awareness that this is something I want to reprogram. This is a thought that I no longer wish to think. This thought isn't serving me. This belief is not serving me. It's getting in the way of my life and me being able to feel joy and feel connection and feel at peace. So having that awareness first and foremost. And then I think creating this space can be done through various mindfulness practices where you can really build and grow a resistance to what you're experiencing. We're always going to have feelings and emotions, but learning to discern them and to really create space in order to witness them is going to be incredibly helpful. I think an important aspect of mindfulness and how mindfulness can help you through this process is when you're mindful and you're present, you're not thinking about the past or worrying about the future. So the more mindful you become and the more you integrate mindfulness into your everyday life and practice it and become better at sitting in the present moment, the easier it's going to be when those thoughts of the past or those thoughts of the future come up, because you can bring yourself back to the present moment and you know what it feels like. You can feel it in your body when you bring yourself to the present moment. When you sit with your breath, you observe, what you're feeling. Sometimes a lot of people don't know what their subconscious beliefs even are. So you might be aware that you're depressed. Obviously, it's pretty hard not to be aware of that because it feels awful. But you might not know, well, what do I believe about myself? And I think sometimes you have to really pay attention to the thoughts in your head and the things that you're saying to yourself. You don't even realize it. It's like these thoughts are so automatic, you don't even realize the things that you're saying to yourself all day long. But again, through the practice of mindfulness and becoming more aware, you'll catch yourself. You will catch yourself saying things and you're like, whoa, 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 don't, nope, take it back. I think I would definitely suggest enlisting the help of a professional, of a therapist, someone in the mental health space, a coach at the very least, because they can help you discover and find what these limiting beliefs are that are keeping you stuck. Another thing I find that helps if you are unsure about what the limiting beliefs are, the thoughts that you have about yourself, keep a journal. Because I've gone back and read old journals and been like, oh my gosh, it's so telling and so revealing as to your mindset and what you're thinking and feeling. Sometimes you don't even know in the moment, but if you go back and read last week's entry or last month's or last year's, it can tell you a lot about what you're thinking and feeling. I think the one thing too to keep in mind, and that's I've had to remind myself too, and I actually spoke with a friend today at the gym, is that this takes time. I mean, if you think that we've been living the same thoughts and patterns for however long, it's going to take some time to reprogram and to be patient with yourself and to give yourself grace and compassion. And you might not see or feel any significant change right away, but know that it is happening and it's compounding, and the more work that you do and the more practice that you put in, the better and easier it's going to get. So if you are experiencing depression, I highly recommend that you continue to explore it with the help of a therapist. I can recommend some really great books that I've read that have opened my eyes to some new theories. There's some really great podcast episodes out there with experts in the field, and I highly recommend that, and just being kind to yourself and just giving yourself love. And also, one thing I still have to remember too is that we're human beings. We are meant to feel, and it's a gift to feel all the things that we feel. And it's not about being happy all of the time. It's about feeling grateful, feeling empowered, feeling compassionate, and just being able to feel and experience the richness of life. And that's, what I think we should all be striving for. And pain is a part of life, but suffering does not have to be. So if you are, please reach out to somebody and know that there is a way through and there is help available to you and for you. If you have questions or need guidance, know that it is out there and it is available. So thank you so much, as always, for listening. I want to share as much as I can, what I am experiencing, because I feel there is value there in some capacity. Sometimes it's hard, though, to be completely vulnerable for a number of reasons. I'm a professional out in the world, and I know that people that know me in a professional setting and can also see this and come across this, so that always gives me a little anxiety, just worrying that it's going to affect my work in some way or affect the way people see me. The other reason that's kind of hard to share sometimes is because when it comes to my mental health and what I experience, people reach out to you, and sometimes it's like you feel this nakedness, this vulnerability. It's so hard to explain. And I don't ever want to discourage people from reaching out or connecting with people that, seem to be in a time of need or seem to be struggling. But it's almost like it perpetuates the stigma that something is wrong with you if you're having feelings and you're experiencing certain things. And so it's hard because you want to encourage connection and you want to encourage conversation, but at the same time, it can almost feel like you've exposed yourself and you can't take it back, and people somehow are gonna, I don't know, treat you differently because of what you shared, when really you just want, most people I think just want to feel seen and just want to know that like other people experience the same thing. So, with that being said, yeah. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate all the support. Anytime somebody messages me, on Instagram or on a text message, just about the podcast and like, oh, like I've listened to the episode, or thanks for sharing this, or like blah blah blah. It means so much to me. Like I don't think people realize. So I'm so grateful that you're giving it a listen. Thank you for sharing it with anybody that you think it may resonate with. I have family members that have started to listen, and I think that is so freaking cool. And I'm so grateful and appreciative of everyone having an open mind and just really, going into it with that, and just hearing what I have to say. So thank you. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow the show on any of the streaming platforms that you listen to the podcast, and leave a review if you can. That helps me grow and helps me continue to do this. So thank you. Bye.
Mr. B, you want to say anything? Hello. Oh, stinky.
Okay, thank you.